then that trauma is going to be projected into the world around you. Then we're into the law of projection. So the law of projection is what we've got within us, we will see in the world around us. The world mirrors what we've got in our system. So if we've got unhealthy consciousness, I call them cubes of consciousness, pixels in our system, then that's going to be projected into the world around us. Well, if you look at the world around you, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. And that is the mass consciousness projection of all of our trauma, our false belief, our loves, our hates, our fears, everything else is projected into the world around us. Our dishonesty, our lies, our control, our manipulation, all of these things that we hold in our system are projected into the world around us. But I've talked about that in my other videos. I wanted to keep today focused on trauma and PTSD, and how easy it is for us to fall into those things and how they affect us. It's not just people in the military, and I've worked with plenty of people in the military, but I started to look into how trauma was affecting children through autism and mothers, and it just opened up a whole new can of worms on this is not being spoken about. Even with our girlfriends, generally women try to hide if they're depressed because they've just had a baby and they're overwhelmed and they're in pain and they're not sleeping, and they try to hide it, and it causes a lot of problems for people. Instead of feeling safe enough to be able to share that knowledge with, first of all, someone close, whether it's a sister, a mother, a friend, a partner, and being able to go and get some help for it. Labeling women have got the baby blues, I think, is just such an understatement for what women are really going through. And we need to be more honest, ladies. We need to put our hands up and say, I'm struggling at the moment, I need some help with this, and I haven't felt the same since. And things like soul fragmentation, realignment, which I spoke about earlier, bringing those parts of us that are broken away during the traumatic experience of giving birth, putting the pieces of the puzzle back together so that we can at least be whole. To me, this should be standard procedure. The system at the moment, and I'm not knocking, doctors and nurses, my closest friends are doctors and nurses. It's not about that. It's about understanding and increasing the education process within the healthcare system to the fact that we are not just mind and body, we are spirit, and that spirit is these layers of energy. That the inner goddess is a layer of energy, that is a program in our system. And understanding that when we go through a shock or a trauma or an operation of any kind, that these things need to be repaired if people are to move on and have a happy life after they've been through something like that. You've also got the shock aspect of what's going on in the system. So if you think about it, it is a shock giving birth. It's a shock to the mother. It's a shock to our body because, the stretching and the cutting and the stitches and everything else that we go through. And it's a shock to the baby. So things like arnica help with shock, but arnica should only be purchased when you've done some research, the lower dose. Somebody once told me that arnica takes out shock for up to 30 years after the initial traumatic experience. 30 years, that's amazing. And I've used it myself, and it's amazing what it does. So shock's released from the body starts to shake when people are releasing shock. Any energy healers out there, if you're ever working with anyone and they go into having like a shaking fit where the whole body's shaking, that's the body, the templates in the body releasing the shock from the cell memory. And that can happen after you've taken arnica, the little pillars that you pop under your tongue. And they can be bought anywhere, but I would recommend only buying the 6 or the 30 CH. Don't go to the 200 because that's going to hit you with a lot of stuff being released very quickly. So do your research on that. But it does help. It does help release shock, and it, that can create an emotional release within the system as well. So it could put you into, where for maybe a couple of days or a couple of weeks, or open up the floodgates to a lot of tears that need to come through the system to release trauma from the body. And it's so important to cry. It is so important to cry. And I read somewhere that on average women cry 5 times a week and men twice a week. Have a think about that. That's an average. So if you're not crying for years, there's something. Where are you storing the emotional disharmony in your body if you're not releasing it through tears, which are, Creator, God, one. It's a system built into us so that we can release emotional stress and, any kind of dramatic stress that we've been through our system. So have a think about, have you got any old shock in your system? Have you pushed down any emotional trauma? Are you just going through the motions? Are you feeling anxious, or there's a piece of you missing, and you've never felt the same since such and such happened? All of these things are symptoms of either PTSD, complex PTSD, or something like that. You may even fall into the autistic category yourself on some level in the spectrum. And I use the words loosely because it is a terminology that is putting labels on people. But basically, we need to be talking about this. There needs to be more research into the birth trauma for mother and baby. And certainly what I've been seeing online and what I've been reading online didn't ring true to me. I don't think there's the statistics that are out there are enough women actually putting their hand up and saying how bad they really felt, or that they still are struggling, or maybe still have flashbacks or something like that. So trauma is memories in the system that affect our day-to-day functioning on a psychological level, on a mental, emotional level, and eventually on a physical level if we don't clear it out of our cell memory, because it gets compacted, and this can lead to disease, tumours, joints breaking down, and all sorts of physical problems in the body. And even things like migraine can be linked to trauma and birth trauma and stuff like that. So thanks for joining me, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.